Karen smiled as the bulldozer rolled across my wheat field. She thought she had destroyed one season's harvest. She had no idea she'd just destroyed the one thing her own neighborhood depended on. 30 days later, every homeowner in her HOA was demanding answers. Subscribe CTA. If you love HOA stories, HOA revenge, and satisfying homeowner justice, subscribe now because today's story proves that greed always harvests its own consequences. For 25 years, my family had grown wheat on the same land outside Cedar Ridge Estate. Every season followed the same rhythm: plant, wait, harvest. But one Monday morning, I woke to the sound of heavy machinery. Standing at the edge of my field was Karen Whitmore, HOA president, pointing toward acres of young wheat. She claimed the crops were an unsightly nuisance, visible from the subdivision entrance. Before I could reach her, a contractor lowered equipment into my field. Rows of healthy wheat disappeared beneath fresh tire tracks. I shouted for them to stop. Karen folded her arms. The HOA voted. I looked across the ruined field. Then I quietly said, "I hope your neighborhood enjoys expensive surprises." She laughed. She thought I was bluffing. I wasn't. Karen believed the damaged field was my biggest problem. She never asked who bought every bushel that grew there. That mistake would cost her the support of her own neighborhood. The contractor shut off the bulldozer after flattening nearly 4 acres. Karen proudly handed me an HOA notice. "Your crops violated our community appearance standards." I stared at the paper. "Our farm isn't part of your HOA." She smiled. "Your field affects our property values." I folded the notice and slipped it into my pocket. "Then I suppose your board already knows who purchased this year's harvest." Her confidence never changed. "We don't care who buys your wheat." I nodded. "I thought you might say that." That afternoon, I drove to the local grain cooperative. Manager Tom Reynolds looked over the photos of the damaged field. His face tightened. "This is the wheat we contracted to supply Cedar Ridge Bakery." "Exactly." Tom reached for his phone. "If this harvest fails, the bakery loses its primary supplier." Within an hour, another call came in. The bakery owner wanted an emergency meeting. Karen still believed she had one. She had no idea the entire local food supply chain had just been pulled into the dispute. Karen thought she had damaged a field. She had actually interrupted a chain of businesses that depended on one harvest. The first complaint didn't come from me. It came from one of her own neighbors. The next morning, the conference room at Cedar Ridge Bakery was full. Tom Reynolds spread supply contracts across the table. The bakery owner looked directly at me. "If your wheat doesn't arrive, we can't meet our seasonal orders." I explained exactly what had happened. Tom quietly placed aerial photos of the damaged field beside the contract. The room fell silent. One board member asked a simple question. "Who authorized this?" "Karen Whitmore." By that afternoon, homeowners began hearing rumors that local bread prices could rise if replacement grain had to be shipped in. Karen tried calming everyone. It was just a field. Then the bakery owner stood. "No. It was the field." He pointed toward the contract. "Your neighborhood has relied on this farm's harvest for years." Karen's smile disappeared. Outside the meeting room, several HOA residents were already asking the same question. "If this is true, who's paying for the damage?" For the first time since the bulldozers arrived, Karen had no answer. Karen expected an apology. Instead, she received an invitation to a meeting she couldn't afford to ignore. 2 days later, the county agricultural office hosted an emergency meeting. Representatives from the grain cooperative, Cedar Ridge Bakery, and several local businesses filled the room. Karen arrived confidently with 2 HOA board members. She still believed this was just another neighborhood disagreement. The county agricultural director projected photos of my damaged wheat field onto a large screen. Then he displayed the signed supply contract. "These fields support multiple local businesses," he said calmly. "Interrupting production affects far more than one farmer." The room became quiet. Tom Reynolds estimated the losses caused by the destroyed crop. The numbers grew larger with every page. Karen finally spoke. "We didn't know." The director replied, "You didn't ask." He then revealed something no one expected. Satellite images showed the bulldozers had crossed beyond the area Karen had identified. Additional neighboring farmland had also been disturbed. Karen looked at the screen in disbelief. One HOA board member slowly lowered his head. The county director closed the presentation. "This investigation is no longer limited to crop damage." Every eye in the room turned toward Karen. For the first time, she realized the harvest wasn't the nightmare. The investigation was. Karen thought the investigation would end with paperwork. She never imagined the final report would be read in front of the very people she'd promised to protect. A week later, the county released its findings. The report confirmed that the damaged crops had reduced the contracted harvest and disrupted deliveries to several local businesses. It also concluded that the work had been authorized without verifying property boundaries or consulting the landowner. Karen sat silently as each page was reviewed. The HOA board members exchanged uneasy glances. The county agricultural director looked around the room. This situation could have been avoided with one conversation. No one argued. After several hours of discussion, an agreement was reached. The HOA accepted responsibility for the damaged crops and agreed to cover the verified agricultural losses, restoration costs, and professional field recovery. The board also adopted a new policy requiring independent legal and property boundary review before taking any action affecting neighboring land. A month later, fresh green shoots covered the repaired field. The following harvest exceeded expectations. The bakery received its wheat. Local businesses continued operating without interruption. At the HOA's annual meeting, homeowners elected a new board that promised cooperation instead of confrontation. As I watched the combines roll across healthy golden fields, I realized something. Karen thought destroying a harvest would prove her authority. Instead, it planted the very change that ended it.